I've had the great pleasure of conducting in Japan, both with orchestras in Tokyo, as well as being on tour with several others. But when we went 2 years ago with Orchestre National de Lyon, this was a very special occasion. We were bringing to the Japanese incredible French repertoire played by an orchestra which is incomparable in this music. In particular, I think the orchestra will never forget a performance we gave of Berlioz' Symphonie Fantastique in Suntory Hall. When we came off the stage, we all knew that something special had happened, something beyond the ordinary, something that you really always hope for, but very rarely achieve. We also had the presence of some distinguished Japanese soloists, and we had even special encores that the audience enjoyed, and I'm sure will again on this trip. I think it's important to understand that the Orchestre National de Lyon plays in an auditorium that is named after Maurice Ravel. So in this very hall where I'm talking to you today, we've played almost everything he's written for orchestra, and we've recorded almost everything he's written for orchestra. Some of the albums are already available, some of them will be coming out, and some will be timed to be with this tour. For example, the famous orchestration of Pictures in an Exhibition, which will become one of our tour pieces, as well as music from Daphnis and Chloe, a Pavane, the Rhapsody Espagnole. We are the signature orchestra for this particular composer, and I hope our audiences really hear the special sound that the Lyonnais bring to Maurice Ravel. About 20 years ago, I started looking at the Mussorgsky Pictures in an Exhibition in a different way. Almost everyone knows the version by Ravel, but in my search, I found at the time 35 different orchestrations, and today the number is closer to 50. And I wondered, what were the others like? I knew a little bit about a few of them, particularly from Kurt Masur, who did one orchestration by a Russian named Gorchkov. So I started comparing the piano version, the original Mussorgsky, to what Ravel did when he made his famous orchestration. And I discovered that there were several discrepancies. The most obvious one is that Ravel chose not to orchestrate one of the promenades. He just omits it entirely. The endings of some of the pieces are changed. The dynamics are changed. The meaning of the pieces seem to be quite different in Ravel's view. For example, the famous Biedlo, the ox cart. In the piano version of Mussorgsky, it starts with the ox cart right there, forte. But in Ravel's version, it begins in the distance. Ravel's version is still incredible, and I thought there might be a way to balance what Ravel did, but at the same time make adjustments to the original Mussorgsky. And so that's what I've tried to do in my version. I've reinstated much of what Ravel either omitted, left out, or changed. But still, the basic orchestration is by Ravel. It's always a pleasure to conduct in Japan. The audiences are receptive, they're always listening, they're always concentrating. For them, it is not a social occasion, it's a true cultural and intellectual event. But it's also one that's filled with emotion. And when a concert ends, the appreciation the Japanese public shows, especially visiting musicians, is much appreciated by all of us on the stage. I was very fortunate that one of my conducting teachers was a great Frenchman named Jean Morel, and he instilled in his students a pride and an understanding of the French repertoire and why the performers were different than, say, German, Russian, American. Renaud Capuçon, our soloist, is one of the world's great musicians, but we also qualify it by saying he's one of the great French violinists. And that means his sound, the way he produces the music and the way he expresses it, has a different quality than, say, some of his contemporaries. He plays the music for its purity as well as for its dynamics and for its emotional depth. So when you hear Renaud play, there's this incredible bond with all the members of the orchestra. Everybody's listening to each other. He makes you want to play together as if it was one giant chamber music ensemble. Lyon is the birthplace of cinema. It all started here with the Lumière brothers. If there was any orchestra that should be playing music with motion pictures, it is Orchestre National de Lyon. The history, the directors, the actors, none of it that we have today would have been possible with what started here more than 100 years ago. The program that we're doing that involves film celebrates the relationship of two incredible men, the director Steven Spielberg and the composer John Williams. Together, they have produced 23 films so far. Those films are legendary around the world. They range from Jaws, in which my mother played the score, to, of course, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Schindler's List, and really you could say they're all masterpieces. But these two people, these collaborators, produced something that is memorable and will be remembered long after we are all gone. Although we're not playing the actual scores as the films take place, we play music from the films and images are projected, some of them moving, some of them still. But you get a good portrait of the wide variety that these two artists have produced.